Hi folks, this is your MWIS planning outlook with our latest longer range thoughts. It's a mild pattern at the moment, indeed rather warm, with temperatures in the valleys well into the mid-teens and overnight staying in double figures, and that mild to warm trend is set to continue. This is the temperature anomaly in relation to the seasonal average over the next 5 days forwards, and we're a good few degrees above those averages, and mild to warm temperatures extensive across the continent as well at this time. The current weather situation is rather complicated looking, but broadly we have low pressure over the Atlantic out to our west and high pressure over central eastern parts of Europe. And all of that is wafting in warmer southerly airflow patterns. One batch of that is from the tropical mid-Atlantic, another zone of air is coming up from the Mediterranean. Either way, it is on the warmer side. Some moisture associated with the various fronts as well, producing areas of rain and drizzle, and some heavier bursts of rain just around for Wales on Thursday. Relatively small amounts of rain are in the outlook over the next few days forwards, though, certainly compared to the higher rainfall totals we've seen earlier this week, as fronts are tending to weaken and become quite slow moving away to the west of us. So, patchy rain and drizzle, some nuisance areas of lingering low cloud will always be found, particularly on more south facing hill groups. Some drier pictures around as well, though, areas towards the north and northeast of major hill groups faring best over the next few days. The weekend detail is slightly uncertain, with again a tangle of some old fronts just draped toward the western side of the country. But I think again more northeastern spots on Saturday should fare pretty well with some drier and brighter conditions. Into Sunday, and we're watching towards the Atlantic for a front making some progress in, with the risk of some steadier and eventually heavier rain arriving. Timing, detail of that is a little uncertain at this stage. We'll have more on that with Dan in the next video for you tomorrow. Taking the story on, though, quickly into the start of next week on these charts, and it's still the Atlantic low pressure system that is going to be around, and that's driving in some further rain or showers and generally mild conditions into the start of next week. There could be some further heavier rain around at times, just depends eventually on the exact rotation point of that area of low pressure. It does stay mild, though. You can see the airflow pattern, even by this time next week, is coming up from the south. It does then become quite complicated in terms of exactly where that low pressure will pivot to in the second half of next week. What's happening most likely is that higher pressure is building toward the north of us, well up towards Iceland and Greenland at this stage, and that will be drawing some colder air around past Norway, and that will try and make some inroads towards us by the end of the week. It's quite a balanced situation, quite finely balanced at this time between the milder and colder weather patterns, just trying to dictate how the pattern goes at that stage. I think a generally still rather unsettled story with low pressure not too far away, but drifting generally into a more easterly wind flow pattern across Scotland, and the scope for something chillier by the end of the week at least. But as you can see with that sort of model chart, at 10 days down the line, it is rather messy, and there's still some further rain in the forecast. It's be said that it's not a particularly clear-cut picture beyond the middle of the month. Many indications have for a while suggested that higher pressure would eventually make some inroads and develop to give a quieter, more settled spell of weather, and that's what's shown from this chart for the 7-day period averaged from the 17th to the 24th. Now, if the high is a bit further north, then again we can just allow maybe that more east or northeasterly airflow to come in. But at the moment, I think the favour is for some quieter autumnal conditions to develop. I will show you this chart, though, as an outrageous tease, really, in terms of what the model charts are capable of putting out at a week or a couple of weeks down the line. And this is a suggestion, at least, sometime around the early part of that week of the 17th, 18th. And that would be a much colder north to northeasterly regime. High pressure would be further away towards the northwest of us, up towards Greenland, in fact, and that would be a much more marked taste of winter. This comes with an absolute health warning in terms of this chance of this chart absolutely coming off like that at that time is quite low, but it does indicate what is just festering within the forecasting models and how the weather pattern regime is trying to develop. And what has happened in the past is that very mild starts to November can come back around completely within a couple of weeks or so to draw us into something much more wintry in the later stages of the month. That has some historic pattern recognition in the mix. So this might not be the exact timing, but I'd be watching for something wintry Wintry trying to develop in the next few weeks. We shall keep you up to date with how that develops. As always, all your local details for 3 days ahead can be found on our website. That is all for today. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.